Hi there again. Hey, this is the last video about drawing this shoe, but it's important because we're going to start drawing in a lot of these details that really bring this shoe to life. And I've zoomed in a little closer so you can see how I get some of those details drawn. Um, but just so you know, even though those details get smaller, we can still use our pencil as an angle finder. We can still kind of line things up to where they go. And we can still look at negative spaces, that little dark space right there. There's kind of a little A-frame right there that you can see. So all those little tricks and tips still happen. Before we start drawing, however, I want to show you one thing about shoelaces. I have a lot of students draw shoelaces like this, where they just kind of guess at what shoelaces are. And we use the word symbolic for that because in their brain they think, oh, shoelaces just cross each other and they just all look the same, but they really don't. Um, First of all, shoelaces are not transparent. You can't see through them. So you want to make sure we don't do that. Second of all, if you find one shoelace and you like it, don't just repeat it every time. And another thing is the hole, the eye that the shoelace goes into, you will not be able to see the entire circle. Okay, so we have to watch out for that, and I'll show you how to do some of that stuff. I want to refer to this real fast. I did a little enlargement drawing first so you can really see how we're trying to get each individual shoelace and to try to draw them with the correct kind of spacing between them and all that. Even though they won't be perfect, sometimes I've even had students have to eliminate one shoelace just to kind of make things fit. Or if they made things a little bit too small, you can add another shoelace and kind of make one up that kind of looks like the rest of them, and that's all good too. I have indicated where you can put a few details in, and even on the one that we're drawing on, I've put a few details in that you can put in, but please do not put in things like textures. If you can see a little bit of a texture in the material, like really soft texture, don't worry about that. The most detail I want you to do is maybe these stitches. And here you can see how I've made some stitches. All right, that's all the detail you need, as well as some of these little parts that you can see down on the sole. You can do some of those as well that you can replicate. If there's a little scuff on the shoe or a little an area like the Nike sign here that's colored in, don't color it in, please. Just keep everything simply in outline. Okay, here we go. So let's start to put in some of those shoelaces. And what I like to do first, after you've gotten in kind of the basics, the other parts of the shoe, I like to show where each shoelace is going to begin first. And luckily, with that little pattern of the patches sewn onto the shoe, we can figure out where those go. And to do that, I don't draw a circle. I know in my left brain that there's kind of a hole and there's a circle. But here, all you do is see a little kind of a little cup, a little letter, backward letter C right there. So I'm going to try to put that one in about the right place. And if it's not quite the right place, that's we'll get it pretty close. At least here, there's kind of just a little cup like that. And the next one over, there you can see it on the far side of the screen, goes about right there. And then inside this zigzag, there's kind of a pattern goes in and out of that zigzag. And again, I'm just going to do a few shoelaces, and then I'll put it in time lapse so you can see the whole thing done quickly. And we'll talk again at the end. And here's what this shoelace comes down right there. So I'm going to make my little cup on top because I know my shoelace is going to come down that way. All right, so now what you do is if you're working at school, remember you can use your windshield wiper. Same thing here, you use your windshield wiper angle finder, and I want to draw this curve. That is like a letter C. It kind of does that, so I want to make sure to trust that. And where this line, where that eye, the hole, kind of lines up with that one, see there's kind of an angle there. I could connect those two with a line. And it kind of goes like that. So I can do the same thing here. And I already have it kind of set up. where I want the other end of that shoelace to happen. Now I can think about that letter C. And in some of these shoelaces, there are some twists and things. Don't worry about being perfect with those, but if you want to, you can try to do this kind of thing where it kind of goes there, and there's another one that kind of comes here. So I'm following that letter C, and that I can let this part go there, and this one kind of come underneath, and here I can let it kind of look like it kind of twists a little bit on the way around, and always go in there and erase those little overlaps. And here's a little trick. If you want a shoelace to look like it gets squeezed down into the eye right there, all you have to do is make like this little letter V, like a little V right there. And that gives the illusion, as you can see, that it kind of looks like it's getting squished down into that small eye. Okay, so we'll call that one done. Now, if I look closely at this photo and at the shoe, if you're at school, there's kind of a thickness right there. You can see the thickness of the leather. So I have one line drawn right there where I think that's happening, but I'm going to draw a second line and let it start to go up, and I'll continue with that later, and I'll have to do some erasing where the shoelaces are. But now I'm going to start to draw the next shoelace, and these two shoelaces, this one is on top. So just like we tried to figure out where this was, then we can draw other things around it, the things that are in front. This one is on top, so that's kind of like being in front. So I'm going to do my best guess. See that little bump right there is where that starts, and it kind of goes up and then down that way. So I'm going to give myself a place for it to start. Just kind of imagine where it's going to go, and it kind of ends right about there. So again, draw lightly at first. I'm going to draw kind of dark, just so you can, again, see it pretty well. And I can see that it just kind of almost makes contact right there. Actually, I'm going to move that line down a little bit, because I think it looks thicker. And that kind of adjustment is always being made. And just so you know, my head is going back and forth a lot between the drawing and the photo. All right, so I'm going to call that one good for now. See, now here there's this little negative space, that little black space right there, almost like a little A. So if I want to make that little negative space first, that little negative space right there, that gives me a pretty good idea of where I can make that shoelace. And I'm going to have to almost imagine where the rest of that shoelace goes right up there, because it's kind of dark in there. So now I can get where those cross over each other. All right, now I'm going to get this one. No, scratch that. I'm going to do this one because it's in front. Okay, it's in front, so I'm going to do that one first, and this other one kind of tucks in behind it. So if I wanted to get that shoelace, and it kind of goes up here and kind of twists and disappears right up there, if I take my pencil, I'm going to go straight over it. It might be leaning that way a little bit, and I think it is. It's leaning that way a little bit. So when I start to draw this, if I drew a line straight up, that's not going to work. I need it to lean over that way just a little bit. So I'm going to let it get bigger as it comes out of the shoe, and then it looks to me like it kind of just curves and disappears right around there, like that. And then I can erase the part of the shoe to make it look like it overlaps. Now I can talk about, or now I can see where the next shoelace bumps into that one, and I can see that kind of angled little negative space right there. So if I want to kind of barely sketch in that negative space on this side, so there's kind of a rectangle right there for the negative space. I can see that it goes over. I need to change my angle a little bit. It goes over and just has that little loop right there, and it just kind of ends right there. I know this little trick of making it look like it has a thickness. If I drew that little line and just let it disappear, this one to show the rest of the thickness. Now I feel like this does not quite go under that quite so much, but I'm going to leave it there because I think it looks pretty good. Okay, so here is that negative space right there, kind of like that one. Excuse me. All right, so we have also a little bit of a shoelace inside the shoe underneath. And that's just a little bit right here. It looks like it's even kind of rolled up and twisted, so it's not as thick. And I can see how these two overlap each other. So that's how you start to get those individual shoelaces, using lining things up with the angle finder, lining things up how they might line up left and right, and drawing the front one first, and then draw other ones that connect to it. So I'll put it in time lapse and kind of finish this off and do a few more details, and then we'll get back to you for a quick summary at the very end. And remember, every time I go off the page, I'm getting my angle. Okay, I'm getting my angle. So you may not see the shoe all the time, but I'll try to make sure it's kind of in there most of the time like this. All right, see you in a minute. Okay, now that we're done with this, let me remind you of a couple things really fast. Make sure you really try to draw each individual shoelace as well as you can. They're not going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes all over the place. Draw lightly first, then kind of darken it in when you think it's in a good place. Also, give yourself targets. Make sure, just draw where you think the shoelace is going to begin. There were a couple times right in here I had to kind of shift where those shoelaces begin because I knew that they were going to bump into each other when they shouldn't. Another thing to think about is when you want to draw these little twists, if you want to, and you don't have to. If you want to, you can just ignore those twists and just make your shoelace just do this. Just kind of stay a little more simple like that, and that's totally fine. I don't expect you to know how to make those twists. However, if you do want to make those twists, here's how you can think about it. If you took a shoelace or two edges, think of it as a ribbon, and where you see a twist, you just cross your lines. And this takes a few times to practice once in a while. So just cross your lines, and that kind of, in a symbolic way, looks like a twist. But all you have to do is erase one of those lines. So I erased this one. And then I'm going to make those two lines go toward each other, but they're going to miss each other, like my two fingers miss each other right there. And they run parallel to each other. They don't do anything, wonky like that. So I'm going to take this line, and it's going to go just inside that one, and this one stays just next to that one, and it kind of goes into the other section right there. And then this original line here that you kind of went through with the eraser just kind of makes contact with that little bridge. And that you can put that anywhere. So that's the kind of twist that I was doing right in here. And it takes some thought to be able to put those in there. And you have to kind of plan ahead where they go. So anyway, this is finished. You will take a picture of that when you hand it in, or hand it in class, or drop it off at school. However that's going to work this year, I'm not even sure yet. I'm making these videos in July, so we don't even know what our school is going to look like yet. So please make it nice and big. You can see how big it is compared to my hand. Make it nice and big. It's the only way to get those details in there. And please go back to the other videos. See how to get this started first. If you just start drawing it without getting the correct angles and the correct sizes, your shoe is really going to start to look more symbolic, and you're going to struggle. So make sure you really follow those videos. Pause the videos. Repeat part of the videos. Do a little drawing and then watch the videos, and little drawing and back and forth. That kind of thing will really help you getting this done. And again, You can draw anything you want to with those tricks and tips. And this is just the beginning, you guys. We're just trying to show you to see like an artist, just in line. Pretty soon we're going to start to add shading and coloring and all these other things to really make your quality or your artwork have a higher quality. All right, there you go. Have fun with it, and we'll talk to you soon.